Please be seated. The court is in session. Before handing over to the International Co-Prosecutor to continue his questions to this witness, the Chamber observes the presence of the Duty Counsel. For record, the Chamber requires that the Duty Counsel tell the court his names and the code number in the Bar Association of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Duty Counsel. Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Saint Rati. I am a lawyer and member of the Bar Association of the Kingdom of Cambodia, and my number is 470. Mr. President, thank you. Now I hand over to the International Co-Prosecutors to continue his questions to this witness.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning again, Mr. Umantan. Just before we broke, you said to us that you were guarding Pol Pot, but as for Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea, they were living in another house. Do you know where that house was? How far away from Pol Pot's place of residence?
The house of Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea was about 300 or 400 meters away.
Thank you. You said to us that you didn't know what positions they held at that time. Did you know anything about their responsibilities other than that they were meeting often with Pol Pot? What else did they do?
I never knew about the roles or responsibilities of Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea. They never told us.
Thank you. If I understand correctly, you stayed in Kampong Cham from 1970 to 1975. Did Pol Pot stay at this base for that entire period? And do you recall when he left?
He left Kampong Cham base to Phnom Penh in 1975.
Do you recall the month by any chance? Was that January, February, March, April, or how long before the evacuate or the fall of Phnom Penh?
I do not recall the month.
When he left the area, did Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea also leave, or did they stay there?
មកពេល10ពេជ្រ
During the liberation of Phnom Penh, Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea went to Phnom Penh first.
When you say that they went to Phnom Penh first, do you mean before Pol Pot?
The three people went there together.
Thank you for clarifying that. And where were you at that time when they left Kampong Cham? Where were you?
When he went to Phnom Penh, I was still in Kampong Cham. I was preparing clothes.
And what was the reason that you were preparing clothes? Whose clothes were they?
I was preparing clothes of Pol Pot, of Nuon Chea, for me to take those clothes to Phnom Penh. Pong called upon me and then I went to Pol Pot after Pol Pot already left for Phnom Penh. It was about half a month after Pol Pot went to Phnom Penh.
Thank you. When they left Kampong Cham, Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Khieu Samphan, did Pong leave with them, or did he stay behind?
Pong went with three of them. Together there were four of them.
Thank you. You told my colleague that on the 17th of April 1975 you were still in Kampong Cham. How did you hear about the victory of the Khmer Rouge military?
Response. I heard through broadcast about the victory of the 17th, about the victory. Of course, it was broadcast time and again.
And who read that broadcast? Was it issued by anyone in particular?
Response. Well, we heard from one another.
Did you hear the actual broadcast on the radio, or did you hear from your colleagues?
Response. We heard from other people telling one another about the victory. That's all.
And when was the first time that you found out that Phnom Penh had been evacuated?
Response. When I entered Phnom Penh, the city was emptied. was very quiet.
Had you heard anything about the evacuation of Phnom Penh or other cities before you saw Phnom Penh being very quiet?
Response: I was at Kampong Cham. I had no knowledge of the evacuation. I came to learn about this only when I entered Phnom Penh and that the city had already been emptied.
Thank you. When you travelled to Phnom Penh, did you travel alone or with other people?
Response: I traveled along with other people.
How large was that group, and were they all guards like yourself, or were there other people in the group as well?
Response: we came in a group of 10 and we also came along with some belongings to Phnom Penh.
Were these the belongings of Pol Pot and Nuon Chea that you said to us you were preparing?
Response: yes, it is. The belongings belong to Pol Pot and Nuon Chea.
And when you arrived in Phnom Penh, where did you go?
Response: upon arriving in Phnom Penh, I went nowhere other than being at K1 Pol Pot's house.
And could you describe for the court where K1 was and what it was?
Response: I may need to explain a little bit on this. K1 is near Tonle Basak River. It was the location where Pol Pot worked.
Is this the location you worked from 1975 to 1979?
Response: yes, I worked at this location from 1975 through 1979.
And did Hong also work here, or was he somewhere else?
Response: Bang worked with Pol Pot, Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan at K1 location.
When you say he worked with them, do you know anything about what he did, what his responsibilities were?
Response: Bang was overly in charge of the messengers and the production section.
And at this point, when you arrived at K1, what position did you hold? What were your responsibilities?
Response. When I was in Phnom Penh, I was made the leader of the group by Pang, the group at K1.
The group that you were the leader of, how large was that group and what were its responsibilities?
Response. It was a 10-man group, and we were tasked with cleaning the houses, catering food and meals to Pol Pot, growing vegetables at the riverbank, and these were the tasks assigned to us by Pang. And we were also asked to wash clothes for these uncles when they came to work.
Did you also have any responsibilities in relation to guarding, apart from the responsibilities you just described?
Response. I were made to guard the locations, grow vegetables, wash dishes, deliver foods and meals.
And where were you physically based? Were you inside the K1 compound or elsewhere?
Response. I was based at K1 compound. Other people were led by Gan and Lin, another group which was not inside this compound.
And that was that a second group of guards outside K1 that you're describing?
Response. Yes, it is correct.
You were the leader of this group of 10 guards. Who was your supervisor?
Response. My immediate supervisor was Pang.
In this period, from 75 to 79, did you ever guard or provide security for any meetings, such as what you described before 1975?
Response. I used to provide security at the normal workplace.
And where was that normal workplace? Was that at the entrance to K1, or was it in a different part of the compound? Could you describe to us how you would guard and where you would stand?
Response. It was in the vicinity of K1 location.
And so just coming back to my previous question, were you ever assigned or did you ever guard any meetings at K1?
Response. No, I never had any big meeting chaired by me myself. Normally there were meetings that chaired by Pong, my immediate supervisor.
Thank you. We will return to those meetings in a little while. You said to us Pol Pot was based at K1. Do you know where Nuon Chea, Khieu Samphan and Ieng Sary were at that time?
Response. Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea stayed at another separate house called K3. Continue. Ieng Sary was at B1.
Did you ever see Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Khieu Samphan, Ieng Sary meet at any of these places?
Response. At that time, Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary and Khieu Samphan attended the meetings at K1, and I don't remember other people who also attended the meeting there.
When they met, did others come to meet with them, or was it just these 4 individuals?
Response. So far as I know, there were other people from sector, zones who also coming to the meetings.
And those meetings that were attended by people from the zones and the sectors, how often did those meetings take place?
The President, witness, please hold on. Counsel for Mr. Khieu Samphan, you may proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. An objection to read detail, but I wish to inform you that in the French interpretation, it was said that based on the witness's memory, there were people who came from the sector or the zone, and it seems as though the prosecutor had rephrased or reformulated that statement because he referred to representatives, which was not said by the witness.
I'm happy to rephrase that, Your Honours. And I'll try and use the witness's words. You said people from sector and zone, from the sectors and the zones came. Who were those people? Do you know what positions they held?
Response. I don't know about this. I only learned that there were people from the sectors and zones attending the meeting, and I heard about this through Pang.
And returning to one of my earlier questions, how often did these people come to meet at K1?
Response. Sometimes the meetings were held once a month, sometimes once every fortnight, but I think that's just my observation.
Just to clarify, I want to make sure we understand correctly. The meetings which people from the sectors and zones came to attend, were they meetings with Pol Pot, Nguyen Chia, Ieng Sary and Khieu Samphan?
Mr. President, if I may, just before the witness gives the answer.
The President, witness, please hold on. Wait until we rule upon the position by the counsel. Counsel Kanawas, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think by lumping all of them together may be misleading. It may give us the wrong answer. I would prefer, and I would suggest, that a more cautionary approach be taken, such as who attended those meetings, who was present from the leaders, how often, as opposed to lumping them all together and the witness saying yes. Because it doesn't tell us that all of them were there at every single meeting, some of them, only one or two of them. So I think I would prefer, Mr. President, otherwise it is misleading and the answer is not helpful to us.
Mr. President, I certainly intend to ask all of those questions. The reason I put my question in the terms that I did is because I heard the witness say that he saw Pol Pot, Khieu Samphan, Ieng Sary and Nguyen Chia meet at K1, and I understood him to be saying that others attended there as well from the sector and the zone. And so I was simply trying to clarify whether those were the same meetings. But I'm in your hands. I'm prepared to proceed as you prefer.
The President, the objection is not sustained. Chamber wishes to hear the response from witness to the question currently put to him by the prosecutor.
Mr. Tan, would you like me to repeat the question?
Response, no, please repeat. The President intervenes. Mr. Nguyen Tan, do you still remember the last question put to you by the prosecutor? If you remember, you can respond to it. Response. I think I remember it.
ឆ្លើយតបនឹង
The president then respond. Response. Please, Mr. Co-prosecutor, clarify the question.
Yes, Mr. Tan, you described meetings that were attended by people from the sectors and the zones, which took place sometimes on a monthly basis, sometimes on a fortnightly basis. My question was, were these meetings attended by Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary and Khieu Samphan?
បាទ
Response. There were people from sectors and zones. At the place of Pol Pot, and there were Khieu Samphan, Ieng Sary and Nuon Chea in the meetings.
Thank you. Did Pong attend these meetings, as far as you knew?
Response. My apologies for not including Pong in my statement. Indeed, he was there in the meetings.
Do you know who organized these meetings?
បាទ
Response. These meetings were organized by Pol Pot, who chaired the meetings.
And how did he organize them? Do you know how it was that others were called to attend?
Response. Whenever meetings were conducted, before meetings were conducted, people would be called through letters. People from sectors and zones would be invited through invitation.
Do you know who wrote those invitations and who sent them out?
Response. The authors of the invitations were Pol Pot, and the invitations had to be sent through me and other people who were messengers.
So did you receive these letters from Pol Pot personally or from someone else?
Response. I received them from Pang, and the letters would then be sent to K7, where messengers at K7 would pick up and relay to other locations.
And just to make sure I understand, did you personally carry letters from K1 to K7, such as the letters you just described?
បាទ
Response. Yes, I did.
And did you provide any other assistance in the organization of these meetings?
បាទខ្ញុំក៏
Response. Yes, but I only provided some services like cleaning the vicinity of the meetings.
And who asked you to do that? Who were you receiving your instructions from?
Response. It was Pang who was overly in charge.
Did you ever discuss these meetings with Pol Pot? Did he ever tell you anything about them?
But
Response. I only heard through Pang that there would be meetings, and this information was only told to me by Pang.
Approximately how many people would attend these meetings?
But ពេលខ្លះខ្ញុំឃើញ10នាក់
Response. Sometimes there were about 10 to 17 attendees, and the maximum would be 10 to 15 people. That's all.
As far as you recall, how long were these meetings? How long did they last?
But
Response. Sometimes the meeting lasted a whole day. Sometimes it took 2 days to conclude a meeting.
And as these meetings continued, were Pol Pot, Khieu Samphan, Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary present for the full duration of these meetings?
but គឺប្រជុំរហូតដល់
Yes, they were.
I know we're going back in time quite a long period, but are you able to recall when the meetings started and when they ended on any given day? 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and when did they finish? If you do recall.
but តាមការដឹងគឺ
As I know, the meetings began at 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock when we broke for lunch. And then the meetings would resume at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and finish at 5 o'clock.
When you say we broke for lunch, were you guarding, providing security while these meetings were taking place?
but
When they broke for lunch, I was guarding the compound.
Did you know anything about the purpose of these meetings? Why were these people meeting at K1?
Maat
I never knew anything about the purpose of this meeting, as I was simply a bodyguard. The leaders never told us about that. My work was only to guard the meetings, and I was to position myself 20 meters away from the meeting. They never told us.
Did you ever discuss what happened in those meetings with Pong, who was your supervisor?
Maat admin
No, I never discussed that with Bong. He generally instructed me concerning the guarding of work. He only told me that, for example, the particular day we would have a meeting, and I was to prepare the compound and to prepare the houses.
Thank you. Mr. President, what I would like to do at this point is show the witness his statement given to the co-investigating judges. There are only just a couple of details that I would like to see if the witness can confirm, rather than me leading him through the evidence. That might be more efficient. If I have your permission, we'll proceed in that manner.
Mr. President, you may proceed. Please identify the documents that you intend to refer to before I decide.
Thank you, Your Honour. I apologise for omitting that reference. It is document D107/2. It has been admitted under an E3 number, and that is E3/33. It's dated the 19th of October 2008, and as I said, it's a written record of the interview of this witness.
President, International Counsel for Mr. Kyo Samphan, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just asking myself about the usefulness of what the co-prosecutor wishes to do. Recently, we have seen the prosecution use previous statements when the witness did not remember the details that were tendered, but it doesn't seem to me that the prosecutor has identified specifically the details that the witness does not remember, and I do not believe that we should simply just reread the previous witness interviews. If the point is just reading the records, just to have them say this is what happened and this is what not happened, we could do it without the witness. So I don't understand what the prosecution is proposing. So I'm basically asking for clarification.
Well, Mr. President, what we just did is to elicit from the witness his testimony about these meetings, and given that he gave a statement 4 years ago, it is not unusual that there may be differences in some respects, and all I'm seeking to do is see if the witness can look at that statement and let us know if that is an accurate or truthful statement. I know Your Honour's asked him that question at the beginning, but it is difficult. These are long statements, and if we can direct his attention to a particular passage, I think it would assist everyone in knowing exactly what the witness's account is.
President, the defense objection is not sustained. The prosecutor may proceed with this line of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with your permission, I have a copy of the statement for the witness, and we would like to show the Khmer version on the screens also.
You may proceed. Court officer is instructed to take a hard copy to the witness. Relevant assistant is instructed to put up the document on the screen as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Town, as I just indicated, these are matters which took place a very long time ago, and we simply want to see if the text in this statement is an accurate reflection of your memory. We're looking at page in Khmer 00231800, in French 00235 and in English 00235 If we can show that page, that Khmer page on the screen, we will proceed from there. I believe we have it ready, so if the AV unit could just project the image now. Thank you. Mr. Tan, I just wish to read to you one question and answer. See if you recall making that statement and let us know if that is an accurate account. Question: what was the function of Car 1? Response: it was the site where Pol Pot routinely lived and worked, and was the site where he met with the district committees, sector committees and zone committees. The meetings were held once monthly, with Pol Pot leading the meetings, and he was the one who personally called the meetings. The attendees were Ying Siri, Nunchia and Khieu Samphan, but Ying Tirith did not regularly attend, just once in a while when the meetings involved social action. I'll just stop there for a moment. You described in that passage the people who attended the meetings as district committees, sector committees and zone committees. Is that an accurate statement? And do you recall saying that?
But
At the time during the interview, I remembered everything I said, and I did not say anything that I did not remember. As I indicated earlier, all my statements are accurate, and that can be used as the documents. So I would like to say that I only said what I remember.
Thank you very much. I will just move on to just read the rest of that passage, just because there's one more fact there which I just want to make sure that you do recall, or if you don't, for you to please tell us. The passage continues. Aside from them, The sector committees, zone committees, and the district committees also attended, but I do not know their names. At every meeting, Pong was in attendance, since he held general responsibility as the person in control of Office 870. I knew that the sector committees attended the meetings because Uncle Pol Pot ordered me to set up the meeting site. He said they were zone and sector meetings. Do you recall saying that, Mr. Tan? Is that an accurate statement, that it was Uncle Pol Pot who told you to set up the meetings and that they were with zones and sectors?
But
Pol Pot told me that there would be sectors and zones to participate in the meetings. That's what he told me.
Thank you. You said to us that letters were sent to through you and then through K7 to invite people from the sectors and the zones to attend. Do you know how Noon Chia, Ying Seri and Q Sampang were called to attend, if they were called to attend? Do you know how their attendance was organized?
Bello,
At the time when we had meetings, letters would be sent to the prospective attendants, sent to those three people, Ying Seri, Kiew Sampon, and Wan Chia, and the letters were also sent to district, zone, sector committees.
And I just want to make sure we understand. You said the meetings took place monthly and sometimes fortnightly. As far as you recall, did Ying Seri, Noon Chia and Q Sampan attend these meetings regularly?
Matu,
In each meeting, there were Mr. Kiew Sampon, Ying Seri, Nuan Chia, and others. They were there regularly. Either the meeting was held monthly or fortnightly.
There was just a small fact that I wish to clarify in relation to the length of the meetings. I think you said earlier that sometimes they lasted 1 day and sometimes they lasted 2 days. If I'm correctly summarizing your testimony, did they ever last longer than that, or do you not recall?
Mat,
At that time, as I know, if the workload was minimal, the meeting lasts only for 1 day. But if the workload was heavy, then the meeting could last 2 or 3 days.
And the people that came to attend from sectors and zones and districts, did you notice if they were the same people that would attend each meeting, or were they different groups that would come and meet?
Bat, Tam Katan,
From my observations, they were the same people. The same people came to the meetings.
Thank you. At that time, did you know what position Nunchia held?
As I indicated earlier, I never knew the role of Nguyen Chia. I'm honest.
Thank you. Did you know anything about the positions of Ying Siri and Khieu Samphan?
As for Ying Siri and Khieu Samphan, well, for Mr. Ying Siri, between 1975 and 1979, he was at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But as for Mr. Khieu Samphan, I did not know anything about that.
Did you know anything about the level at which these people were within the party? Were they considered low-level people, high-level, medium level? Did you know anything about that?
I never knew as to what level those people were at. I have said that I did not understand a lot about the leadership. I did not know what they did at the leadership.
You said you didn't know anything about what they did at the leadership. As far as you knew, were Nguyen Chia, Khieu Samphan and Ying Siri members of the leadership?
Yes, they were.
What about Pong? Was he a member of the leadership?
My apologies. Bong was also a member of the leadership. He was a leader as well, because he was generally managing the unit.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier Office 870. Do you know what Office 870 was?
Office 870 was led by Bong, but I did not know what role Office 870 had.
Now, you have described very comprehensively for us what you knew about the regular meetings with people from the sectors and the zones. Were there other meetings at K1 or at K3 where the leaders met?
បាទអត់មានទេ
No, there were no meetings at K3. There were only meetings at K1. K3 was the residence places for Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan, and the workplace was at K1.
When you say the workplace was at K1, do you mean the workplace of Pol Pot, or do you mean the workplace of all the leaders?
បាទនៅផ្លែ
At K1, it was the workplace for all leaders. As for K3, rather, everyone was to attend meetings at K1. No meetings were held at other places.
And how often did Nuon Chea, Khieu Samphan and Ying Siri come to work at K1?
From my observation, when there was each meeting, these people came frequently. They came frequently, according to my observation.
As far as you know, did they work together with Pol Pot? They meet together, or were they working separately at K1?
They were there in one place.
Just to follow up on that, and please tell me if this is not correct, from what you just described, would it be fair to say that Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Ying Siri and Khieu Samphan worked together?
Yes, it is correct to say so. And from what I have said, yes, it is.
Now, you described them earlier as leaders. Do you know, as a group, what responsibilities the leaders had, or what functions they performed, what they did?
I never knew about that. As I said previously, I will answer on the basis of what I knew. The leadership never told us about that. For us at the lower level, as a bodyguard, we wait to be told as to what to do. And as for the leadership work, we were never told about that. We were at a lower level and we were never told.
Thank you. When you were answering questions posed by my colleague, you mentioned that you accompanied Pol Pot on a number of trips before 1975. Did you ever travel with him between 1975 and 1979?
My answer to this question is that between 1975 and 1979, I also accompanied him to Phnom Penh, to Battambang, and sometimes from Phnom Penh to Kampong Chnang, sometimes from Phnom Penh to Siem Reap. He usually called upon me to go with him. Sometimes we went to the canal place to where people were planting rice.
And what did Pol Pot do during these trips, apart from visiting canals to observe places where people were growing rice?
At
that time, he visited canals, he visited sectors as well, but I did not know what he talked about because I was far away from him. As a bodyguard, I was about 10 meters away from him. I did not know what he said to the sector committees.
So just to confirm, do I understand correctly that he met with sector committees during those trips, but you didn't participate in those meetings? You didn't hear what was discussed?
It is true. It is like that.
Do you recall where it was in Kampong Chnang that you visited?
It was many years ago. I do not remember it.
Thank you. Mr. President, at this point I would move on to a new topic, and I can do so, but given the time I'll do as you direct.
Mr. President, thank you. It is now appropriate for us to break for lunch. We will break now until 1:30 in the afternoon, when we will resume our proceedings. Court officer is instructed to accommodate the witness and his jury counsel in their waiting room and to return them to the courtroom by 1:30. Yes, counsel for Nuon Chea, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My client requests permission to follow the remainder of the afternoon from the holding cell.
Thank you. Please be seated, counsel. Having heard the request of Mr. Nuon Chea made through his counsel to follow the proceeding remotely for the remainder of the proceedings today, as he waives his right to be present in this courtroom, the Chamber grants the request of accused Nuon Chea made through his counsel to follow the proceeding remotely through audiovisual means for the remainder of today's proceedings. He waives his right to be present in this courtroom. The Chamber requires that the defense counsel for Nuon Chea submit immediately to the Chamber the written waiver of Mr. Nuon Chea with the thumbprint or signature of the accused. AV unit officials are now instructed to live the proceedings to the holding cell downstairs for the accused Nunchia to follow for the remainder of the proceeding. Security guards are now instructed to bring the accused person to the holding cell downstairs and to keep Mr. Nunchia there for him to follow the proceeding remotely and to bring back Mr. Keo Sampon by 1:30. Court is now adjourned.
សូមក្រោកឈរ